All right, let's take a look at our Serial Wombat 18AB chip output scaling again and how it impacts our robot arm that we got from DIYMORE. If you look up above, there's a whole playlist on this robot arm that you can watch. There's also a playlist that's related to the output scaling functions, which are applicable to any Serial Wombat 18AB proportional output. So as we saw before, we were able to scale the output of the arm to prevent it from hitting things that it wasn't supposed to. So at this point, I have good control of the servo. But it's kind of interesting, as we watch and the robot arm is out, it moves in a pretty jerky fashion. And why is that? Well, number one, when we make a change like that, we're telling the servo to change instantaneously, and it drives really, really hard. The second thing is that physics is at work here. The robot arm has one set of actions going up and a different set of actions going down because gravity works on the control system in a different way. And we're fighting gravity and inertia and a variety of different things that if you're a controls engineer, you're highly aware of. If you're new to this, maybe less so. So let's take a look at rate control. And if we take a look at the flow chart for the Serial Wombat 18AB scaling, we get a value in from the PC, and we saw that. And if we have scaling enabled, it goes through each of these boxes in order and does transforms until it goes to the output that goes to the pin. And so last time we scaled the output just before it went out so that our values were proportional to the motion that was possible under the robot arm. Some things like the shoulder can move all the way back and forth one way or another. Other things like the gripper and the wrist have limited motion. So we showed in the previous video how to deal with that. Now we're going to take a look at output filtering. And again, if we look at this on the arm, if we look at this on the arm, we see that we get a fair amount of jerk here. So let's put a control in here that limits us to 50 counts every, we'll say 16 milliseconds. Generally speaking, your control system should be lined up with how fast you can actually make output changes. We could call it every 1 millisecond, but that doesn't really make sense because we know that pulses only go out to servos at 50 hertz or every 20 milliseconds. So we have to pick a power of 2. We'll pick the 16 that kind of lines up with that. And so now we're going to configure a maximum rate. And we can see if I make a change on the screen, we get a very slow response on the robot. And that's kind of good. We see as it's going down now, we're not getting that massive overshoot. Now, it does take us a while to get to where we want to go. So let's put both of these at 250. And we'll say configure maximum output rate. And we can see now we get much less of that jerking. What we do see, though, is that we see a lot more jerking on the way down than the way up. So what if we set a different motion for a different rate limit for when the robot arm is moving in one direction or another? So let's set it for 100 on the way down, but 300 on the way up, because we know we have gravity helping to stop us on the way up. So let's do a control there. Pretty smooth going up. And it's not awesome going down. This is a servo-based, cheap robot arm that has a lot of slop in its mechanism. And so we're never going to totally get rid of that shuddering that we see on the way down. I could take this guy and I can knock it down to 25. But at some point, I want to actually be able to get the robot to where I want it to go. And 25, if I look at that, boy, that's just not fast enough for me to have fun with. So I'm going to go ahead and be happy, and I'm going to split the middle and set it to 100 on the way down. That stops the robot from doing crazy stuff, but it also gives me pretty good response. The other awesome thing that this does is that if let's turn the scaling off and on again, that'll clear everything. We'll configure our output range. One of the things we can see here is, I really don't want to, I can bang the crap out of my robot by letting it fall that way. And so I really don't want that either. So the filtering we're going to put in also really does a lot. If I say, go to the bottom, it goes down there slow enough that it's probably not going to break anything. So I really like this feature. Again, it's important to note that all of this rate limiting is happening on the Serial Wombat 18AB chip. None of it's happening by the computer. None of it would be happening in the Arduino. Essentially, you just tell it, hey, I want you to go to 40, well, not 40,000 because that would be past the top, but I want you to go to 28,000 and go. And now I want you to go down to 1,000. Go. And if we look at the commands that are actually being sent to the Serial Wombat chip, watch this. We'll only see one command go. That's it. But the control rate was limited on the chip. So this, I think, is a really powerful control for anything that has a mechanical action to it with a proportional output. So we'll be going through some of the other boxes as we go through as we make our robot better and better. But the output scaling that we did last time and the filtering, I think, really makes a massive improvement in the way that this particular robot works. Until we talk again, have fun and keep making stuff. The Serial Wombat firmware is available on GitHub and is constantly being updated. Subscribe below so that you can see the latest features and videos that come out as we fix bugs and add new features. The Serial Wombat open source project was created by Broadwell Consulting Inc. Broadwell Consulting Inc. provides help developing medical devices with a focus on developing embedded firmware, which is compliant with IEC 62304, ISO 14971, and ISO 13485, as well as remediation assistance for products already in production. For more information, contact John at Broadwell Consulting. Support requests for Serial Wombat should be sent to help@serialwombat.com and will be answered on an as-available basis. Also, feel free to leave your question in the comments below.